I'm back, and today we're talking about the Sam Coupé. But why? Almost nobody bought that machine. Nobody's gonna watch this. But I think it deserves a little bit of attention, because it was a wonderful machine and it was the designated successor to the ZX Spectrum. It even offered a ZX Spectrum compatibility mode, so you could play the games that you already owned. Well, sort of. Designated Sam Coupé games were also made, making use of the advanced sound, graphics and extra memory of the machine. But how do these games compare to their ZX Spectrum counterparts? Were the games actually better, or maybe even worse? In this video we're going to find out.
Let's all turn on the tube. This is hot dog soup.
The Sam Coupé was created by Miles Gordon Technology, which was already famous in the world of the ZX Spectrum. Many Speccy owners would remember their Disciple disk interface, as well as the Plus D and of course their disk drives. The company was very successful and used the profits from those devices to create the Sam Coupé. Apart from offering improved graphics modes, stereo sound, disk drives, MIDI ports, joystick and mouse support, the Sam Coupé offered a special ZX Spectrum compatibility mode. However, this only offered 48K compatibility, which was a huge disappointment for those expecting to run 128K games. So what about actual Sam Coupé specific games then? Many hope that the big software houses that made Speccy games would also come up with Sam Coupé titles. Unfortunately, this barely happened, so basically almost nobody moved until the Sam Coupé was dead. Also, the company who made it going bankrupt 3 times didn't really help. And I myself think that the toy-like design and the sort of childish robot mascot was a little bit too much for Speccy people who were now in their late teens and early 20s. However, a nice heap of games actually saw the light of day for the Sam Coupé. I'll compare some Sam Coupé games to their ZX Spectrum counterparts. And who am I, you may ask? Well, I was involved in a Sam Coupé game called Bats and Balls. I designed the graphics for it. This is what my end boss looked like. Please complain in the comments below. First off, Manic Miner. It was of course a huge hit on the Speccy, but would Sam Coupé owners want to buy it? The Sam version is very colorful and has great music. The pixel perfect jumping is there and the gameplay is excellent, just like the original. However, what is this monstrosity here? That's not Miner really. This guy is way too happy. Your Sinclair was very positive about Manic Miner and gave it 84 degrees, even though the original was now almost 10 years old. Crash gave it 86% and called it a damn good game. It's 1990 now, so we're in Pang, Rainbow Islands, Chain Dragon and Midnight Resistance territory. I myself at the time thought that it was a game that nobody was really waiting for. Let's have a look at Astroball, released by Revelation Software on both the Speccy and the Sam Coupé simultaneously. Not a very well-known game, but a Your Sinclair mega game on the Spectrum in 1992. In this bouncy ball game you control the ball horizontally, but the screen vertically. You need to reach the top of each level without missing the required items. It's actually a lot of fun to play even today, and I could hardly stop playing while recording this video. The Sam Coupé version has slightly nicer graphics and sound effects. It also received a mega game rating from Your Sinclair, calling it screamingly playable. Overall, a very nice game on both platforms. But for context, on the Atari ST and Amiga we were already used to Shadow of the Beast and things like Swiv. The Light Corridor, another game that isn't very well known. This game was released for the Speccy in 1991. However, the Sam Coupé version was not. It was found years later in 2007 on EmuZone, according to worldofsam.org, which is an excellent source of Sam Coupé information, by the way. In this tunneling game you have to move a ball through the tunnel by catching it and deflecting it forwards, while also dodging all kinds of things that block your movement. The ball itself will disappear into the distance if you bounce it, but is returned after it bounces off something in a 3D Arkanoid way. Crash magazine called the Speccy version of the Light Corridor simple but addictive at an 87% rating. Sinclair User, however, gave it a gold award at 93%, and Your Sinclair gave it 80 degrees. The Sam Coupé version was never reviewed as it wasn't released. Overall, it's a great game which is still fun today, but it's not the killer platform hit the Sam Coupé so desperately needed back in the days. This is Splat, released on the Specky in 1983, so many of you will probably know it. It's a typical 1983 maze collect 'em up. However, the maze moved by itself, forcing you to follow along and not get stuck. For some reason, a Sam Coupé version was released in 1991, probably because it would be an easy conversion. The magazines didn't really like it that much, even though the Specky version received 81% in Crash and 4 out of 5 stars in Home Computing Weekly. But that was 1983. Yep, this is an accurate conversion of a crap old game, and it remains a crap old game, because it wasn't upgraded in any way for the Sam Coupé era. Next up is Snare, a ZX Spectrum game from 1992 that offered a Sam Coupé version on the B-side of the tape. It runs natively on the Sam and uses a loading screen converted from the Amiga version. Snare is a maze game in which you have to escape by destroying walls and baddies in a sort of Bomberman style way. You can trigger chain explosions by blowing up the right items, and this can be a lot of satisfying dopamine style fun that we all know from mobile gaming nowadays. The ZX Spectrum version was called old-fashioned looking by Sinclair user, which gave it only 65%, even though they very much liked it. Your Sinclair, however, awarded a mega game with 90 degrees, calling it maddeningly addictive. Unfortunately, the Sam Coupé version wasn't reviewed in any of the magazines. It doesn't really offer anything extra, graphics and sound are very basic, and not very welcome to the new era of 8-bit computing. But it is as good and as addictive as the Specky version, which is absolutely lovely. Now let's get to the good stuff. This is Klax, a very well-known block-dropping puzzle game by Domark. This game came out on many platforms and appeared on the Sam Coupé 2 years after the Specky version. Colored blocks fall down from a 5-lane conveyor belt and you have to stack them and create color matching patterns. It is a very addictive game on any platform. The Specky version was a crash smash and your Sinclair reviewed it 3 times, going from 81 degrees up to 92 degrees, awarding it a mega game. The Sam Coupé version got 82% in both Crash and your Sinclair, missing any awards, but I agree with them. The graphics are colorful, but sort of messy, possibly making you yearn for the Specky version where visibility is a bit better. Nevertheless, a great game and something that definitely would have made the Sam Coupé platform more interesting to potential buyers. On to Pipe Mania, the put some pipes together and make sure some sort of goo can flow freely without leaking up from Lucasfilm. It was released on many platforms. You get a random sequence of pipe blocks and have to make a pathway in time before the goo begins to flow. Each level gets harder as you have to make longer pipes and encounter obstructions on the playing grid. The Specky version was a crash smash and the Your Sinclair mega game, as it is indeed a very addictive puzzler. On the Sam Coupé, the graphics are much nicer than on the Specky, making the game even better. This version, however, scored lower in the magazines, as the music was called recycled from another Sam Coupé game and there were some user interface glitches. Despite that, it's a very nice game on the Sam Coupé and it matches the Atari ST and Amiga versions, even though it has no sampled sound or music. Here is Escape from the Planet of the Robot Monsters, a well-known hit game from the late ZX Spectrum era. This one too was released and well received on many other platforms. Playable with either 1 or 2 players, you basically have to escape from the planet of the robot monsters. You do this by freeing slaves and destroying robot computer systems while being chased by them. The Sam Coupé version is basically the Specky version with Atari ST graphics and some additional sound and music. They even kept in the slightly annoying control scheme of the Specky, where the keys could not be redefined and you walk around using rotation and forward instead of having directional controls. Both the Specky version and the Sam Coupé version were highly rated in the magazines, the Sam version receiving gold in Sinclair User and 86% in Crash. Unfortunately, the Sam Coupé version contained some intro screens that were taken directly from the ZX Spectrum, including color clash. This would have been very disappointing for Sam Coupé players who expected an upgraded experience. However, in 2025 a patched version was released in which this was solved. In that version, directional controls were also added and some other annoying glitches were fixed. So the original version was already really nice, but since 2025 the Sam Coupé version of Robot Monsters is excellent. Here is another classic, Prince of Persia. It amazed gamers with wonderful rotoscope animation of the main character, creepy dungeony atmosphere and complicated puzzles. It was released on many platforms, but not on the ZX Spectrum. The Specky version arrived in 1996 and was made by a Russian hacking group as an April Fool's joke. They claimed that Domark would release it officially, but this wasn't the case. Prince of Persia takes place in real time. You have 1 hour to complete it. Dying meant you were dead, just one life, constantly being in danger. Of course you have to save a princess captured by some bad guy. Of course you have to go through a maze of puzzles, enemies and other perils. The graphics were superb for the time on all platforms. The Sam Coupé version matched the quality of the Atari ST and the Amiga version. The ZX Spectrum version was never reviewed in any of the magazines as it didn't exist. The Sam Coupé version was a crash smash, a Your Sinclair mega game and Sinclair User Gold. Crash magazine said it shows what the Sam Coupé is capable of, and Your Sinclair told us this game was a good reason to buy a Sam Coupé. Sinclair User even called it the best version of Prince of Persia on any format. Yes, Prince of Persia on the Sam Coupé is a real classic. A classic that Specky gamers could only dream about and drool on. And here's another Sam Coupé classic, Lemmings. Again, a game that has been released on heaps of platforms, including the Specky and the Sam Coupé. This puzzler that has you controlling dozens of characters at the same time was ridiculously popular in the 90s and many follow-ups, sequels and variations were made. On the Specky, Lemmings was a crash smash, a Your Sinclair mega game and got great reviews all around, even though the graphics are sort of garbled and it's very hard to see what you're doing. The Sam Coupé version looks really nice and is much more playable. However, it had no sound effects to speak of and no speech like on other platforms. The Sam Coupé version wasn't reviewed in any of the Specky magazines, as it was 1993 now and the lifetime of the Specky was over. Some magazines showed a Lemmings preview, but no longer existed when the game came out on the Sam Coupé. To me, Lemmings on the Sam Coupé feels kind of slow. The loading of levels takes ages, and when a lot of stuff is happening on the screen at the same time, the game almost grinds to a halt. While Lemmings was a great game, it proved that the Sam Coupé was a less capable platform than the others. The last game in this video is Defenders of the Earth. Released by Enigma Variations on both the Specky and the Sam Coupé, the Sam version definitely wins. Based on the TV series of the same name, you control Flash Gordon to save the world, as you do, and you get occasional help from other characters from the show. It is a fast-paced platform shooter with some puzzling elements, and in the final stage you even fight the evil boss called Ming. The Specky version was made by an entirely different team than the Sam Coupé version, and scored around 60 or 70% in various magazines. The Sam Coupé version was very nice indeed. The graphics are excellent, while the speed is still there, and the gameplay is in my opinion better than on some other platforms. It scored around the 80% mark in the mags. Your Sinclair called it stunning, the first proper Sam Coupé game. Sinclair User said it was an excellent conversion, and Crash said this game shows that the Sam Coupé can deliver. Unfortunately, Defenders of the Earth on the Sam Coupé had an audio problem. The stereo sound effects and music could only be heard through the left channel. Programmers Sean Conran and Rob Holman didn't have enough time to complete the SAA 1099 sound chip code. The issue was fixed by adding some pokes in the basic loader. Apart from the sound issue, Defenders of the Earth is a true Sam Coupé classic. It looks great, plays fast and personally made me feel proud to own a Sam Coupé and show it off to my mates who were still playing boring old color clashing specky games. So there you go, a couple of Sam Coupé games that in some cases really showed the power of the machine. For specky gamers back in the days, it could be sort of disappointing while they were considering buying the Sam Coupé. A lot of games were sort of slightly better than on the ZX Spectrum, but there wasn't anything spectacular going on. Of course, that isn't the case for specific Sam Coupé games that didn't exist on the ZX Spectrum. I will talk about those in another video. Do you have any thoughts on the Sam Coupé and its games? Did you consider buying one? Let me know in the comments. Specifically, since almost nobody bought a Sam Coupé, tell me why you didn't get one. Yes, you're all guilty of not buying one and having MGT go bankrupt. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.